Okay, third video of the day. First one didn't get up though. I deleted it by accident. It was over 2 hours long, I'm sure. Anyway, I took a little nap. Because I'm tired, right? And it's hot up here, you know, so it makes it hard, eh? So anyway, I'm back to doing this. I want to finish this. So at least these 2 bags of this stuff is out of there. And then I guess tomorrow I'll be cooking and going through the buckets again. I don't know, people. I just keep thinking that, you know, I don't know. I feel like I got to go to legal aid and go put an application in for a lawyer. They'll be like, what's it for? MCFD harassment? Wow, I'm making friends, aren't I? Right? You know? Yeah. I know it wouldn't be approved. Oh God, no. No, it would be denied. No problem. Real fast. Yeah. I'm a lowly grandmother. Been there, done that. Right? And they'll say, well, what's it about? And I'll be like, well, MCFD workers are now acting like City of Surrey bylaw officers, where they feel that they can come into your house and start telling you to get rid of your furniture and your belongings. Yeah, and they use kids as a hostage to make you do that. Because if you don't do that, there's a possibility that there's going to be penalties. Because, you know, as I was listening to that recording, that woman kept saying, you're not being penalized right now. You're not being penalized right now. You're not being penalized. You've got time to do what you... First of all, I haven't done anything wrong. Okay? I'm not hoarding garbage. Well, I suppose some people might see this as garbage. It's just a paper bag from Walmart, right? But I did pay for it, so there is a dollar value to it, especially when they start to accumulate. And it's not like I'm not going to use these for their intended use as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, you know, anything in a bucket is good food, so they can't call that garbage. Anything in a jar, for the most part, is good food, unless it's maybe an old jar that's been kicking around that, you know, could be emptied out into the compost and the jar itself can be reused. Because things do sometimes, depending on the food, it does deteriorate, right? But for the most part, this stuff is primo stuff. So they can't say I'm doing that, right? I mean, what else do I have in my house? Children's crafts, children's toys, cookbooks, children's books, fabric and clothes, which I am slowly but surely trying to liquidate, but I have to organize it, right? I have to make it accessible. So when people want to come and look at it, you know, it's pretty much in one location and easy to go through. I bought a second hanging rack. It costed me $600. Yeah, I haven't set it up yet. I have my old one from back in the day that was downstairs in Tisha's room when I was down there the last time I was down there organizing it. And I brought it up with all the costumes, and that's in the playroom. And I washed most of the costumes or whatever was on that rack, and it's on there. And I put a few other things on there, but you know, I've got floor length jackets, leather. I have leather floor length to the floor, to your ankle. That's how long this one particular leather jacket is. And I'm going to sell that, right? And I've got other leather jackets that are vintage that I've had for years. I have jackets from the time I was, 17, 15. Yeah, I think so. In around that time period. Yeah. Leather. you know, obviously food prep in my room, home canned goods, you know, different sauces, tomato sauce, you know, sweet and sour sauce, those kind of things, right? Lots of salmon for Amari, home canned goods, beef, chicken, turkey, whatever, rice, spaghetti, macaronis, cantatelli beans, some of these 2-gallon buckets with the various wheats that we'll be grinding up in this $1,700 food mill that I bought and I haven't used yet because I have to clear out my porch. Well, yeah. Inside porch. This is my inside porch. My outside porch is falling apart and ruins everything. And when I open that door, I am going to show you what I have to do with that porch as I throw out hundreds of dollars worth of stuff that got ruined because of a leaky roof again. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, honestly, I don't think the city of Surrey had the right to come in to a property that I rent and ask my son in the middle of winter with snow that was on the ground for 3 weeks to take everything, while the landlord was reinforcing that. Take the planter pots, take everything, it doesn't matter, take it. I don't even have really wood to do any kind of repairs. And then when I asked my son to maybe go to Home Depot and buy a few 2x4s for me, you know, which I can probably still cut at this time because it's just a straight cut, right? And if the line is dark enough, I should be able to see it. I won't attempt to cut plywood though, because plywood will buckle and right, so I wouldn't do plywood, but I can do 2x4s. I wouldn't do a 4x4 though. If I needed a 4x4, my son could cut that for me. But I'm not wanting to buy 4x4s, and any 4x4s I had, most of them went out into that bin, and they're making, I paid $2,100 and $2,150, and I'm still paying, and I still have not gotten a receipt. No, my landlady keeps saying, oh, I keep asking for the receipt, but they won't give it to me. So that tells me I probably won't get it because they don't want me to see something on there. Yeah. Which is wrong. And I honestly don't think a city bylaw officer can come to your house and just throw out everything that you own from the yard after you've been there for 14 years and you have proof that you worked in it like a slave for tens of thousands of hours, if not hundreds of thousands of hours, as you paid for much of that material if you couldn't find it, and then to have it thrown away because you were at the tail end of that process. Yeah. And now we've got social workers trying to repeat that same situation on the inside with the subliminal messaging of, well, you're not being penalized yet. I don't know if she put the word in there yet. I'd have to listen again. But she kept reminding me that I wasn't being penalized if I couldn't do it fast enough. But that she was going to come by every week. Not once, not twice, but more than that. Because first it was 2 issues. First it was 1 issue. The fire thing. Which I can prove that this window is the best window to get out of every window in this house. Okay? And as a matter of fact, I told Andre, I think you and I are going to do a mock escape with a blanket, with something that's about 50 pounds, which I have a cast iron, a really heavy duty one, that my son and his wife threw out into the garage, and it's sitting right there. And I want to season it, and clean it and season it, and then try and sell it. Because clearly they don't want it, right? Versus just leave it on the road for somebody else, because I did pay for that, right? And it belongs to me, and I have a right to try at least sell it, right? I just haven't had time to season it and whatnot. So, okay. So, we're going to do a mock trial with either the cast iron, not the one I just showed you, but this is a different one, or something that's about 50 pounds. Amari is not 50 pounds, but we're going to try something with 50 pounds in a blanket, and we're going to see how hard it is to get it down with him standing at the bottom after he climbs down on a ladder. But I have to dig out the ladders first. But that's not the priority right now, right? Because when I cleaned out my room to make space for all that stuff, because I couldn't take it downstairs because I was locked out, and that's just the freaking fact, right? And if those social workers don't want to acknowledge that shit, then, you know, it's a setup, right? Okay? Because otherwise, if I could have been downstairs doing what I was supposed to be doing, maybe my room would still be my room and the situation would be different, but I was basically pushed out of my room to finish up with the food prep as the food prep downstairs was being mixed up, right? Okay? My son yesterday accused me of stealing Marina's socks. I said, why would I steal her socks? Oh, and then he goes, now you know how it feels to be accused of something you haven't done. I'm like, oh, so what does that mean? He says, well, you know, we didn't steal your stuff. Okay, well, whatever you got to say about that, you sure in the hell did mix it up. And in my opinion, some things have gone missing. So, you know, when you start touching other people's belongings without permission and you ruin their stuff, you mix up their stuff and stuff goes disappearing and you find it in the garbage regardless of whatever you think was no good because it sat in plastic for too long. Actually, they were perfectly fine. I think it really depends on the type of plastic things are packaged in, because I find some things with certain plastics don't hold up well, where other plastics can hold up to the test of time. Although through my years of prepping and then coming into contact with old food and analyzing it and tasting it and cooking it or whatever I do with it, you know, the best is putting it in a jar, right? That is just the best. But not everybody can afford that. So you have to factor that in, especially for poor people. And for poor people to do anything like I've done, you should give them credit before you should try and tear them down. And the way I'm seeing it right now, I feel like these people are trying to bankrupt my house. Okay? This is manufactured poverty at its finest. Okay? I'm serious. What do they plan for Amari? Do they think they can honestly take Amari and just put him in a crib and leave him there? And it's not that simple. But, you know, that's okay, though. You know what they'll do? They'll drug him up. That's what they'll do, people. They'll drug him up and they'll put him on a feeding tube and to fatten him up. So maybe he might get fatter with the feeding tube because they'd have to feed him 24/7 as they drug him to do it because he's way too freaking active, okay? Way too freaking active. And they'd have to be, I don't know where they'd possibly put them, being that, you know, they're just foster parents. Okay, so I put a cord in there. What's going on? I plugged it in. I found the cord. It wasn't that far away. So, yeah, I was talking about Amari. Okay? What are they going to do? They're going to take Amari? Why? Why? To give somebody $4,000 a month to look after him, who ultimately at the end of the day is going to have to put him in a metal crib that's padded. Even if they put him in a wood one, if he's got any energy without drugs in his system to make him passive and listless, you understand what I'm saying here? He'll break the rails. I've already been through that, people. I've already used wood rails. They don't last very long and they become dangerous because, you know, they just, right, they're dangerous. So you can't, and you can't just use a normal gate, you know, like a normal just bed rail. It's not high enough, and you'd have to encompass the whole bed, like that bed in that bedroom. If we were to use that bed now with Amari for his okay, so the stove plug, I don't know. I plugged it over there into a socket. It might kick out again. This camera is on its last legs. It really is. I can't even get the battery out of it now. Yeah. So it's plugged into the socket, so it might not kick out right now, right? So we'll see. If it kicks out, I don't know what to say. So yeah, you know, just what? They'd have to pad it. A metal crib, they'd have to pad it. They didn't even have to really kind of paddle it well. He'll break the rails on a wood crib rail. That's a given, no matter where you put them. Oh yeah, the bedroom. If I was to use the bed in there, which at this point we chose not to, one, that room gets really, really hot, and two, the bed is up quite high off the floor, and I would have to gate off the whole bed with high rails, not this size, not just a standard bed rail, but like a crib. And I would probably, to be really safe, I'd probably have to use metal or a hard plastic at least. Yeah, or at least a hard plastic, because a wood wouldn't work, because I've had them before when he was younger, and he moves, right? And he pulls, and he whatever, you know. So it's not like you could leave him alone for any length of time bouncing around on a bed by himself, right? Plus, if he has a seizure, you won't catch it. So I don't know where these people plan on putting him so that he's going to get better care than when he gets here. And in terms of putting on weight, well, you know, I don't know, people. What are they going to do? Put him on a feeding tube 24/7? Oh, yeah, good luck with that one. Keeping it in, right? Without the upchucks, and without the constipation, and without the crying and the frustration. Okay, but if they dope him up, it won't bother them so much, because they're just doing what the ministry tells them to do, right? Because you have to remember, when Andre went into foster care, they were doping him up then too, okay? The girls seen it for themselves. Andre! What did I say? I let him play today because he's checking out his mic. Because we're both depressed with this whole situation. Yeah. Yeah. I'm taking it back tonight, though, and he doesn't get it back until the 15th. So, you know, there's no, you're not being penalized. Well, what's the penalty? Since you've got an idea of what the penalty is, I'd like to know what it is, right? What do you, what? Since 2018, I put my first application in for long-term disability. It was denied. They sent me back a letter saying I had 1 week to take it to my family doctor and have him correct whatever needed to be corrected and submit it, right? And then they would reconsider it. Guess what? I went to the office and he was gone for 3 weeks. Talk about a setup. So that never happened. And then because of the city of Surrey and all their antics with me out in the yard, yada-yada, you know, looking after Amari, yada, I didn't get back to the doctor until December 20th to talk about getting my form filled out again, right? And he, you know, I went in there for a mass exemption with Andre and me because of that COVID crap. We got the mass exemption, and then when I wanted to talk about the long-term disability, he said, no, we'll just leave it until after the new year. You come back, but you have to pay $250 this time, right? And then he rushed me out of there. So I never even got a referral for eye drops, people, okay? I should have gotten referral for eye drops, because the referrals for eye drops comes in from the family doctors or from the eye specialist. So okay, I ran out of there, $250. And that's when I was putting in a freedom of information to get Sierra's medical files from that clinic and Shemay. And because he's seen that, that's when he told me to take him to court. So it wasn't like I could go back and get a referral for eye drops. It wasn't like I could go back and get you know, have him fill out my disability form, nothing. So what did I do? I just kept on working, looked after Amari, did what I had to do. Always had that, I did not put the whip on my back with the city of fucking Surrey. Hell no. I fixed Mrs. Gill's freaking drainage water problems. I fixed Mrs. Gill's sand pit out in front that was nothing but a litter box, right? I built garden beds. Oh sure, they're a little weeded over right now, but they're pretty easy to bring them back to the state of being a garden bed. And I did all that with the whip on my back as I paid for the materials, and I put in 12 hours a day from 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, sometimes 5 to 7 days a week, depending on what city bylaw officer had me out there working like a slave. All right. So it wasn't like I could go off and get eye drops because I didn't even have a referral, right? So in the meantime, I'm looking for a doctor, right? You know, phoning there. Couldn't get. Put my name on some BC registry list with the kids, right? And then finally, what, in 2023, as I went blind, and it wasn't even finally. No. By April of 2023, I think it was 2020. It was either that or 2022. April. Tisha took me out. Everything was great. Right? I was phoning around trying to get, help with these clinics to see me so I could get a referral to, for eye drops or see a specialist or do something. Nobody was answering their phone. They weren't returning phone calls, right? They weren't taking patients because of COVID. So when was that? I don't know. Okay. And then eventually the eyes just went bonkers on me. And then I kind of just, I was phoning around, still kind of hoping that I'd get something or something. And eventually in October of whatever year that was, I went to the Royal Columbian Hospital and I went into emergency to have my eyes checked. And that's how I ended up getting the eye specialist. And once I seen the eye specialist, that's when I got the eye drops, but it was too late. By that time, I had 13% vision in this eye and 2% vision in that eye. Yeah. So through that process, within the year or whatever it was, I asked him to help me fill out my disability form, right? Because I couldn't find a family doctor. Nobody was accepting patients. So on the form itself, it says a nurse practitioner, family doctor, right? A doctor, like, I guess, eye specialist. Long story short, because I had already submitted it before, I had this doctor fill it out, provide the paperwork, wrote what I had to say about, can't find family doctor, yada, yada, yada. But I'm still putting the application forward. So when was that? 22, 23, probably 2023, right? And I submitted that long-term disability, form, and it was denied because I didn't have a family doctor to fill it out. So 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. For 8 years, I have been waiting for long-term disability, okay? And I haven't received it because the government keeps throwing in those roadblocks. Well, these social workers are just another roadblock to imprint, to stamp home that, manufactured poverty, where not only do you lose your stuff, and you stay in poverty, but you lose your human rights. And that's basically what the city of Surrey proved by doing what they did with my landlord, because she was gooning on it, people. She enjoyed the power. She took advantage of it. And, and then they made me pay for it. And they refused to give me a receipt, right? You know what I'm saying? And she still expects me to go outside and work, even though she knows I can't see very well. But, but it is what it is. I was up for the challenge. I don't know how much I'm going to get done now, though, but I'm going to attempt to do something. When the social workers will come, they'll say, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm working on the porch. Why? That's not what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah, well, it is, because some of this stuff that could be here could maybe go on the porch if I could try one more time after trying time and time and time and time to leak-proof it so that I can at least have it maybe in the spring if the raccoons don't move in and trash it. Okay? And I have the tarps. They're there. And they're pretty good tarps that I could probably leak-proof it pretty good. It's just I don't have no wood anymore, people, to hold up the tarp. It's going to be just done by staples. I needed 1x1s. I needed 2x2s. I needed these little slat things that I had long that I could just run it across and hammer it in between the 2x4s, so that when the water came, I could have made the tarp go on an angle, so it could have just right versus saturating everything, and it ruined a bookshelf, and the bookshelf is buckling. Right? I was supposed to change it last year, but I didn't get a chance to do it. So yeah, like it's a fucking setup, man. Oh, you're not gonna be penalized. You're not. Well, how could you? What could you possibly penalize me for? You don't see no freaking beer bottles sitting around here. You know, you don't see a bunch of people sitting around sleeping on the couch. You know, being, what do you call those people that, couch surfers? You know, there's, right? You know, I'm not running around sleeping with a whole bunch of men and none of that crap. Like, whatever, man. I did freaking blueberries. I did freaking fish. You know, I've got jars here that I can repurpose some of my canned fruit downstairs once I get downstairs. So what? I'm going to bring up that canned fruit, have the box sitting on the freaking floor with a bunch of jars around, and then they're going to walk in saying, well, what are you doing now? That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be a clear floor. Yeah, but I have to get these out of the can because they've been in the can for too long because I couldn't get to my food downstairs, for crying out loud. So if I put them in a jar, they'll be good for years and years and years and years and years. As long as the lid doesn't pop. Maybe it's not important to you, but it's important to me. And it's important to Andre. And it's important to Amari. And you know, that's what's important here. Not power tripping women that want to do a repeat of a City of Surrey and Mrs. Gill, where they can prove to the world how they can just go into people's houses and tell them to start getting rid of their shit. Get rid of your computer desk. Go get rid of your computers. Go get rid of your freaking paperwork. Go get rid of your lamps. Go get rid of your printer. Go get rid of your pictures. Go get rid of your books. Right? You know what I'm saying? And then when you're done that, go over there and start getting rid of that. And for what? For what? Do they honestly think Andre's going to go in there and sleep by himself when he damn well knows what kind of situation we've got going on in the living room with Amari? No. No. As for space, he's got his little space right now, and we're planning for a different space, and we're working towards it. We're working towards it. We're trying to decide what we should keep without somebody stealing it away from us. How about that? Maybe we'd like to keep our DJ equipment. Maybe we'd like to keep our records. Maybe we'd like to keep some of these books. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we'd like to keep some of this fabric. Maybe Andre would like to learn how to sew. Why does Andre have to go out and go buy new stuff when he's older so that he can attempt to sew when Nana already has it? Oh, what? Just give it to Marina so she can sell it? Not me, but Marina can sell it. Yeah, okay, I don't think so. I don't think so. And then hold that, you're not being penalized. You're not being penalized. We're not penalizing you. You've got time. Well, what happens when the time runs out? Is that when I get penalized? That's why I want to go get a lawyer. What am I being penalized for? Straight up fucking tell me. Don't play fucking head games with me. Right? You want to take Amari and put him in a fucking metal cage and with batting in there so he can't see out, right? And drug him up so that he won't cry and disturb your foster care parent as you put in a freaking feeding tube to say that you're feeding him? Yeah, okay, that's quality fucking British Columbia, BC Healthcare, Ministry of Children Development foster care system. Okay, okay. Since you like to use Amari as the reason as to, you know, whatever it is, when you're not trying to use Andre and his emotions because he at this point in his life doesn't have his own room. None of us have our own room right now. There's a few people you can thank for that. Okay? People who will never take responsibility for what they've done to us. And then what? The house starts to go bankrupt because I won't have enough money to pay bills. To which might force me into OnlyFans. No shame to my game. If everybody else can do it, young and old, why can't I? Well, you'll get cut off of welfare. Well, if I'm making enough money to go pay for a lawyer and still pay the bills, what difference does it make if I get cut off fucking welfare? Because it's just a stupid trap anyway. Right? They can cut you off at any time. Illegally. Been there, already done that. You know what I'm saying? In 2003. Right? I seen what they did to my daughter, Sierra, when they threw her out in the streets. Okay? And she was healthy. And she was fine. She was just a little disturbed with Joan Duncan downstairs, and I wasn't sympathetic to it because I myself was being overworked, right, with the yard and everything else, and I should have just been a little more patient when those social workers came up and said, well, what's going on with Sierra? And, oh, well, you know, she's going out and she's not coming home when she says she's supposed to, right? You know, it'd be nice if she could come home a little earlier. They took that and they freaking ran with it. They literally freaking ran with it. Next thing you know, they're saying, don't come home. We're teaching you a lesson. You come home, we're taking Andre. And then they started screwing with my head. Made me put him in freaking daycare. And the minute Tisha was gone, where she wasn't sitting with them because he didn't want to be there, they came in and they swooped him up. And then they did things to him that I told him about today that he does not remember. But I told him, I said, Andre, I know you don't remember these things that happened to you. But at the end of the day, that's why they like them when they're young. Because they can split the brain through trauma. Dual personality, perhaps, right? You know what I'm saying? Or at least implant triggers. They're coming in, they're wanting to trigger him. Oh, well, come do this program, come do this, you know, there's something wrong, you know, you're being, you know, well, maybe he likes looking after Amari. Maybe he loves Amari. He's been with Amari since Auntie Shemay's been dead. That first day, he was there with Amari. How dare these people trivialize his love for Amari? Serious. So that they can promote their agenda. Because that's all they're doing is promoting their agenda as they wave over my head. What is that? Oh, you're not going to be penalized yet. Yeah, okay. You got time. Okay, I got time for what? Gut the fucking playroom so that what? It can sit empty? Yeah, right. So that people can pillage more of my shit and not be held to account? Is that it? Yeah, okay. So that Andre and I don't have the opportunity to go through them, list them as vintage and sell them and actually make some money. So whether I pay down bills, keep the house running, or whether we put that money away for our next move. How about that? Huh? Well, we're not allowed to save to move. I'm not allowed to sell my clothes. Is that it? I'm expected to give my clothes away for an empty fucking room that nobody's going to use. Is that it? So social workers can walk away and say, we did a good job, but we're not done yet. There's something else we got to find because we're building a case like the city of Surrey with the fucking yard with the landlord. Yeah, because they want to put, what, an immigrant family in here that's subsidized with federal funds? Is that it? Yeah, just like they got them working and they're paying their wages, the federal government, with these immigrants. Now they want the houses, and yeah, some of these immigrants are getting $80,000 for 2 years straight between federal subsidies, including rents and that type of thing, with the provincials, whatever province they're in, as well as the municipals. Oh, you don't care if I go homeless. If I go homeless, just make sure Amari's somewhere else. Yeah. I suppose I could take Andre with me. How come Rhea could take her little 3-year-old disabled child, but I can't take Amari? Why, what's the difference? What's the difference? Amari likes to be with us. He loves to be with us. He wants to be with us. Okay? So don't tell me if I don't become homeless that I can't go to a homeless shelter with Amari. Right? That's not being negligent. That's the government being negligent, making it so that people can't get housing. So I guess before that happens, they gotta run me out of the house, because that's basically what they're trying to do here. Because they're not helping. What, give me a food voucher? They offered me a food voucher. I said, no, I don't need a food voucher. And then I thought about it. And I said, well, but you know, on the other hand, they're always nice to have. Because, you know, I go online, and it's so easy for me to spend $200 at least, and once I get to the $200 mark, I might as well push for the $300, and I go a little past maybe $335, because then you get that free gift, which Andre always likes, right? But even if I do a basic shop, I'm looking at $186 to $250 when it comes to eggs, milk, whipping cream, hemp seeds, that kind of stuff, right? Right? Because that's something we go through really fast. I guess that's not important when you have plans to put a little boy on freaking a feeding tube in a metal cage that's padded to keep him safe, so that you can drug him up so that he won't move, so that you can fatten him up, so that you can say that you did a good freaking job as you destroyed his family while you did it. That warrant's going to see a lawyer. before it even happens. This shit's not funny. We've done nothing wrong. Nothing. Now, whether they're watching my videos or not, and they want to have one step ahead of me, like, you know, because that's what happened with Andre, right? Things got funky. Things got funky. So, I said, you know, when they kicked out Sierra, it just got funky. And I said, I think I'm going to get a lawyer. I think I'm going to go talk to a lawyer. That's what I told the social worker. As soon as I said that, that's when they went for blood. Yep, that's when they went for blood. And they made me put him in daycare. And they illegally apprehended him, right, on false allegations that were never proved, right? Didn't even make Sierra go and do all the necessary testing, and because eventually they switched it over and said she was doing drugs because they didn't want to admit that they kicked her out because they wanted to teach her a lesson, because the kids and we kept calling them on it. And they didn't like it, right? So they tried to hide it and deny it. But Sierra was an addict, so she couldn't cope with it, right? She fell victim to the stress. And, you know, who wouldn't? One day you wake up, your mom buys you a brand new $800 bed, you have a room, you have a son, you have a family that supports you, right? You're just a little stressed out with Uncle John and his wife, Joan Duncan. Not John, Joan, right? Because of her mental illness with her psychoses of this and that and everything else that she had with her freaking anorexia and bulimia and OxyContin and whatever. And, like I said, I should have seen it for what it was, but I don't think it would have mattered what I said, because they had their targets on Sierra anyway. They knew that once they kicked her out, that was it. It was going to be game over for her. And it was. And as soon as I mentioned that I want to go get a lawyer because I didn't agree with them kicking her out, that was it. Then they went for blood with me, and they practically killed off my family because we all became suicidal at one time, including Uncle John. And then years later, the fucking dirty cops, they used Chimay and tried to use that to cover up her murder, to say that that's why she died, is because she was suicidal at such a time, because Andre was illegally apprehended, and therefore she overdosed on fentanyl, but with intent, which is a lie, which is a big fat freaking lie. She was hot capped. Every damn cop knows what hot capping means. That's what she was, because it was a freaking setup. And people made big money off her body. Yeah. Big money. Including the ones that killed her. Yeah. How do you think that house manifested? It was laundered through ICBC. Because you're dealing with a large syndicate of criminals. Yeah. So I feel like I'm right in the freaking hornet's nest with it. I do. So even if I go and I put an application in at Legal Aid for a lawyer, just because I need counseling of some kind when it comes to what are my rights? Do people have a right to come in here and start telling me to get rid of this, this, and this after they wipe me out in the freaking yard, so that they can come back not even a year later and still take my grandson away from me because it will be my eyes, or it will be this, or oh, you lost your housing, the house going up for sale, and now the property developer is going to tear it down. So now that you're homeless, you have to forfeit your grandson because we're not going to help you and your other grandson because he's a teenager now. He can go to those services that we referred him to. Yeah. Well, Amari's sitting up in a cage waiting for his number to be called. Basically, being drugged up to contain him, to control his movements. Yeah, because they're not going to want to keep an eye on him like we do. No way. No way. It requires a lot of dedication, what Andre and I do. It requires teamwork. It really does. Right? And they don't like that. No. they'd rather Andre meeting high-risk youth in some program through the network of whatever, so that kid can become a trigger to whatever was implanted into his brain when he was in foster care under trauma, without him even realizing that he's being triggered. And the next thing you know it, he's the next generation of God knows what. That's going to be nothing but a ticket for somebody, like a meal ticket for somebody else, once they can't use and abuse him anymore. Yeah. Because you know they use and abuse them until they can't do it anymore. That's the thing. They make it look like they're helping them, but at the end of the day, they use and they abuse them. Once they get them addicted to drugs, hook them up with the right kid, with the right attitude, with the right game, something Andre doesn't have. Andre doesn't have game. Okay, he wouldn't realize he was being manipulated. He's not streetwise. He wasn't raised like that, but they want to force him into groups and these kind of places where those kind of kids are going to be. Maybe not all the kids, I agree. I'm not saying each and every kid's going to be that way, but there's going to be a whole lot of them, especially with the resources that they provided down as a list of services to these kids. I'm not stupid. Went through it with freaking Sierra, for crying out loud. Yeah. Oh, you're not going to be penalized if you can't do it fast enough. Okay, I'm not going to be penalized. When am I going to be penalized? And what does that mean, penalized? What is the penalty for having a box of food on my floor when you come and I made an order to Canadian Superstore? What is the penalty for not moving my buckets out of here fast enough because the basement is taking a little longer because I have to work outside and protect my what's left remaining few belongings that are on the porch, not to mention just do as much porch repair as I can before the heavy rains come, because that porch is rotting out, and it's been rotting out ever since I moved into this house, and I've been the only one that's been doing the repairs on it. And I do it because I love my family. I'm trying to protect my family. I try and hold off the inevitable when it comes to that porch. I try to save what little few belongings I have left. And maybe I might be able to find a little extra space to put something that I can hide out there for at least the winter and then deal with it in the spring, if it hasn't been ruined by then. Because whatever I tried to do didn't work when it came to leaks. Because it never ever really does. But the tarps that I have right now, they're a different kind of tarp. I paid good money for them. They've been sitting there for a couple of years. I need to use them. So don't be surprised if I'm not doing porch repairs within the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then they're going to be, well, that's not what we told you to do. I'll be, yeah, but that's the priority. That is the priority. Oh, but you're supposed to be emptying the room. For what? Andre doesn't want it. Right? What we want is to move into a different house where we're not being gang-stalked all the time. How about that one? Can we find a house where we're not being gang-stalked? Right? You know what I'm saying? Right? Can we find a house that's actually affordable? Right? And decent? Or are you asking me to get rid of my stuff so that you can downsize me into a 2-bedroom, well, not even a 2-bedroom, a 1-bedroom box, being that by that time they probably would have already taken Amari? Yeah, okay. As one of those penalties? And then when he dies and you ask why he died, no, well, that's none of your business. He's in our care. We don't have to tell you. And like I said before, you can't get an independent autopsy in British Columbia, Canada, to find out the truth, because the government is corrupt and they protect themselves and their workers. And that's why they make it impossible for you to pay for an independent autopsy to find out the truth as to what happened to your loved one. And that's why they do what they do, because there's nothing there to hold them to account. Yeah. I can only do so much in a day. Serious. I am taking this day. This is taking me all day to do this. But at least this part will be done. Waste not, want not. Will I ever be able to make sourdough bread with Andre? It's hard to say. we're being sabotaged, right? You know what I'm saying? Seriously, we're being sabotaged. Yeah, that's the way I see it. You're not being helpful. I don't want your what is that called? Food shit. Food voucher. What for? So you can hold it against me? Yeah, okay. There is no feel good with this situation. You're not trying to help me. You're trying to hurt me and hurt my kids, my grandkids. Yeah. Yeah, you're trying to humiliate me, demoralize me, just the same old song, the same old okie dokie shit that I've been putting up with ever since Andre's been born. Ever since Andre's been born. This is it. This is the way it's been. Yeah. And they use Sierra. They got her addicted to drugs young. Yeah. That was their entrance point, was Sierra. And then once Andre come, that was it. You're stuck. Yeah, you're stuck with them. I don't know. That's what's going on. So I don't know. Maybe I'll walk down to legal aid and I'll just put the application in. They can deny it and I'll have it for my record that at least I tried. Yeah. I don't know what I'll list it down as. It's not like I have a duty counselor to help me with that. Although I could go to the provincial courthouse and I could go talk to a duty counselor. I could tell them write it down quickly. And then, of course, go to that MLA. Yeah. Go to the MLA. Say it didn't stop. It didn't stop with the city of Surrey, what they did. And my landlord. No. Now we've got MCFD on that bandwagon thinking they can come into your house and telling you to start getting rid of your shit. And yet they can't provide no housing solutions. They just tell you to put the kids somewhere else before you become homeless yourself. That's all. Yeah. Well, why didn't you tell that to Rhea? You let Rhea have those kids in a homeless shelter. She first went to a hotel. She pleaded for them to pay for the hotel. I think they paid for 1 week for her to be in a hotel, and then they put her in a shelter, and then you're only allowed to be there for 30 days, whatever the hell it is. And then you move to a different shelter, to a different district, stay there for 30 days. I think she lived like that for 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months. I don't know. She was there for quite a while between all these different shelters. Yeah. And then they closed the file before she even found a place. That's what she told me. They closed the file before she even found. They didn't help her with nothing. Nothing. They walked away from her. Yeah, left her fucking high and dry. Yeah. And now she's in a 2-bedroom basement suite full of mice. Martine thinks he's got mice. Rhea was telling me she goes away for a couple of days. She comes back and she's got mouse shit everywhere. Everywhere. All over her counters, all over the floor. That's how bad that house is with mice. Yeah. Because of the negligence from the landlord. You know what I'm saying? And it's just a rickety old house in between empty lots that are going to be pretty soon with a whole bunch of buildings built in them. And then they're going to force her out. Yeah, and she's going to probably be homeless again. And that's what she pays, I don't know, $1,700, $1,800 for. A bunch of nonsense. Yeah. Yeah. So are the social workers doing the bidding for the landlords? Get the tenants to get rid of their stuff? Help us to get the tenants to get rid of their stuff. Is that it? Get the city to help the landlords to get rid of the stuff in the yard, doesn't matter what it is. And then get the social workers to come in to get rid of the stuff. Just find something, anything, it doesn't matter. And keep coming back so you can keep looking for something as you build your case. Yeah, we know. We've been there with that, with Sierra. Yeah. And once they're in the foster care system, c'est la vie, good luck getting them back. Yeah. You gotta have a lot of strength and a lot of stamina. And, you know, it costs money. And, you know, they make you jump through hoops. And so they will effectively be destroying our lives permanently. All three of us. Amari's life will be destroyed. He'll never forget us. Andre's life will be permanently destroyed. Already asked him about it. And my life will be permanently destroyed. Well, Tisha and Marcaine will just blame me for it, because I didn't move out furniture. But yet nobody's going into their space and moving their shit out. But they're fucking with my shit, mixing it all up and scattering it around and yada 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 yada. As my son is now accusing me of stealing Marina socks. Yeah, okay. If it was that simple. If it was only just that simple. Yeah. So my only three options is just sit and ride it out and see what happens, or try and find the courage, because it would take courage for me to go and to legal aid or to the province. Probably duty council would be better, now that I'm thinking about it. At least a little bit anyway. Some counsel, when it comes to that, is better than no counsel, right? They offered me counseling, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's okay, I got YouTube. Right? You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to legal stuff, well, beggars can't be choosy. And if it gets real ugly, then yeah, I might have to consider OnlyFans. So move over, Tamika Johnson. You're getting some competition here. Yeah, don't underestimate an old woman. I'm just saying, what do I got to lose? I would have lost it already. But at least I'd put up a good damn fight, because you know I'd be fighting for my grandson, and that's where my money would be going. Oh yeah, that's what I'd be doing it for. Yeah. Welcome to the real world. Yeah. Yeah. I'd be doing it for my grandkids so they can be together. That's exactly what I'd be doing. Yeah, whatever I'd be doing, I don't know what you guys do on there. I can't imagine. But I'm pretty sure I could find the gumption to do it under the right circumstances, being that I would have lost everything by then, because those penalties would have just ran out, because they haven't even been cashed in yet. We're not penalizing you yet. Okay, so how are you going to penalize me? You going to deduct some money off my welfare check? Is that it? I don't think that can work, because that legislation is gone now. It's illegal. You never had the right to do that in the first place, and what right you did have, it was only $100. Right? In other words, you can't cut me off illegally off of welfare, because that got dealt with in, I don't know what year they took them to court. I can't remember. But anyway, that ministry, in partnership with the other ministry, with the two ministries that were merged together at the one time, they actually did the right thing for the people, and they fought for the people. Not these guys. They don't fight for the people. They do as the ministry tells them to do, because there's an undercurrent of criminal activity that benefits from dead bodies, injured bodies, broken people, homeless people, en masse, injured children that are easy to manipulate and use and exploit and traffic. Yeah. Yeah. Well, people like me, well, I don't know. I guess we'll have to just wait and see what's in my cards when it comes to my so-called fate, which doesn't look very good right now. And I'm not being oversensitive on this either, people. I'm not being paranoid on it. I'm not being oversensitive, over-exaggerating. I'm not over-exaggerating on this, right? I'm being realistic. And whatever expectations she hopes to see when she comes next week, I'm not going to meet it. I can tell you that right now, because there's too many other things I have to do. And when you're doing stuff like this, which is important, maybe not for her, but it is for me, right? It is for me in that crock pot, cast iron Dutch oven, I should say, right? And the kids, when it comes to homemade bread, it took all day, and I slept for a little while because I got up late, and I'm tired. Yeah. And my back is sore. And yes, I am worried. So worried, like I said, that, I don't know. I won't ask Tisha to drive me to the courthouse. I'll just take a bus with the kids. I'll do it for myself. Yeah, I'll just do it for myself. You're going to take my stuff away from me? Just to prove a point that you can? As you ignore what we say about our situation and how we like to deal with it because we're the ones doing the daily grind? Because you think putting Amari in a metal cage with a padded freaking all the way around where he can't see nothing in order to keep him safe, as long as he's getting a feeding tube inside of him, right? And drugged up to keep him quiet so he doesn't get on the foster care's nerves. Okay. Okay. Because they don't want Andre growing up learning how to look after him, because they got other plans for him. Something that they planned for at the time of the birth when he was injured by a doctor through negligence, through a hospital through negligence that everybody's still trying to cover up. The plan was written for him before he was born. That's why Shimei was sent away for 5 days. And then had her labor pains for 5 days, and then they still dragged it out. And then they blamed her for it, when it was not her fault. And they know it. Maybe that's why they're doing it, because I'm going to ask this neurologist to look at Shimei's medical files and Amari's medical files, and before that happens, they don't want that to happen. Because they don't want the truth to come to the surface. So they gotta bury it. As they destroy people around them. Because nothing good is gonna come out of it, that's for sure. Not on the path that we're on right now. Hell no. Just gonna bankrupt the house. Make everybody suicidal, including Amari. He won't understand what he's feeling, but he'll definitely be sad and lonely. And if they hurt him, then that's not good either, right? At least I try to protect him from being hurt. I stand up to doctors that want to do unnecessary tests unless they can prove to me that it actually makes sense. Or if they do tests like x-rays that end up cooking him and making him get fevers, I let the doctors know so that maybe they can back off on 1 or 2 of them at least. And then to find out that whatever x-rays that they gave him when it came to those hips meant absolutely nothing, and all they did was expose him to radiation, which could very well affected his gut and how he digests food. But of course they don't want to acknowledge that, because all they want to do is put in a feeding tube, dope him up, lock him up, and call it a day. Yeah. And like I said, when he dies, we'll never get the truth if they take him. Because what other penalty would there be? What could they possibly penalize me with? By not doing what they want me to do at their time schedule. Do you honestly think Andre would go freely with them? Hell, he doesn't even want to talk to them, for crying out loud. He doesn't like it. He never has. And now he's old enough to voice his own opinion about it. So of course they'll focus on Amari. because they don't listen to Amari. Because he's just a little disabled child that's, in their mind, retarded. So his voice doesn't count. And if he calls for Nana, they'll just put some cow in there to replace me and call her Nana, or it Nana, because it could be a transgender that's dressed up as a woman, right? Which, what do you call that person? A woman? When really it's a man? I'm just saying. Right? Just call that person Nana, and Amari will forget if you make it tough for him. Right? Start doing what you did with Andre with his private parts. That's pain, right? You know, split that brain as if Amari's got a brain. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Andre and I, we had a little conversation about that today. About being uncircumcised and what it means for a boy his age. And what happened to him when he was little due to getting a diaper rash for the first time in his life when he was in foster care within 20 days. That magically made it where they could physically do what they wanted to do with him, where his foreskin went all the way down the shaft, which is not normal for a 2.5-year-old. When I got him back, he was 3 by that time, in a bit. And within a few months of me not touching it, it fused itself back together. And I told him about it. Yeah. And I told him what he needs to do now at this age, as well as look on the internet to get some information as to how to look after himself properly. You don't think I'm not thinking that might happen to Amari, being that he's not circumcised? Yeah. They don't care about that, because the doctor would have ordered it. I wanted to get him circumcised. I went to the doctor. We were going to make an appointment, but because he, you know, was so skinny and stuff like that, and yada yada yada, I got a little nervous about it because of the anesthesia. So I put it off for a little while. So, you know, if he ever needs to have anesthesia, which if he has an MRI, which I put off for a while, because there's deeper issues that I need to speak to with the neurologist in terms of maybe we should be looking at the brain differently when it comes to the weight loss in light of what was going on with his right side before the left side started to catch up with it, right, in terms of no muscles and stuff, right? And you know, in a situation like that, if he was to have an MRI, he'd have to be under anesthesia. But the thing is, you don't want to keep them under anesthesia for too long, I don't think. So, I don't know. I'm not too worried about it at this point. I told Andre, though, that we need to try and pull down his foreskin again. We tried it. It didn't work. I had a little cream I was putting on it. Nothing worked. He would be a good candidate for circumcision. But that hasn't happened yet. Okay. So that's where I'm at with this shit. Okay. They got me shaking in my boots thinking about lawyers. Yeah, because of the penalties that are hanging over my head without knowing what those penalties are. Yeah. As they expect me to get rid of my furniture and my belongings with no consequences, as if they have a right to do that. Yeah. And I think that's morally wrong. And the only thing that I can think of is they're downsizing me to get me ready to be kicked out. They're just the precursor to get me ready to be kicked out to either homelessness where I'm expected just to hand over Amari to whoever, because they're not going to help me with the grandkids when I show up at a homeless shelter, right? Because we already know that was Rhea. And after that, they'll just treat me like Sierra. And ignore me. And then I'll be targeted in the healthcare system even more. 8 years I've been asking for long-term disability, and I still haven't gotten it yet. Yeah. And it's not like I can run off to the doctor anytime soon, because I'm too busy trying to please young women on power trips. Yeah. Christina. What was her last name? Her first name was Christina. That was the one that destroyed Sierra's life. Christina. I'm pretty sure, or Christine. It was either Christine or Christina. I'd have to go into the paperwork to read and find out. Christina, I can't think of her last name. I wonder if she's still doing that to other people. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so as I wait for this first video, I can't remember the title on it, something about maybe getting a lawyer, right? Or go seeking one out or something, I don't know. And, you know, they want to put Amari in a cage, right? As if they're going to have half a living room with a king-size bed on it with a bunch of bean bags and a couple of people keeping an eye on them doing shift work. Okay, I'd like to see that happen. The only people that would do that, that would be willing to do that, would be the ones that actually love them. Yeah. And had time to develop that heart of steel. Okay, so being that they're all so stressed out about paramedics, this is this medication that, it's a new medication. Remember, I've been talking about it for the last couple of videos, so that the first time we use it, he goes to the hospital, they make sure that he's not allergic to it, right? And if he's not allergic to it, the next time he has a seizure, we use it again, and we don't have to call 911, because we've gone through seizures too many times already that we kind of know what to do, right? We know what to expect, we know what to look for. You know, I've been at the hospital each and every time, right? What is this? Oh, okay. To be there with him, whether it's 2 hours, 3 hours, about 3, maybe 4, they let you go, or by 2 days, depending on what they're up to, right? Okay, because he had those series of tests, right? The blood work, extra blood work to, you know, check, to, you know, just a little more. And the doctor said his blood is really clear and clean, and he wasn't missing any nutrients, and yada yada yada, right? So anyway, I don't feel very well, people. I really don't. I'm going to go back and lay down, like, even before these social workers came, you know, I have my highs and my lows, right? And sometimes I just have to rest for a couple of days to reboot my body, right? Because, you know, I put in long hours, and I'm usually on my feet, and, right? And, you know, since I had that little nap, it wasn't long enough, and no, mind you, I've been high-strung all day, so that's taking excess energy from me, right? Kind of made myself smell like B.O. Working myself up, because I'm, you know, I'm preparing for the worst. That's what's happening here. I'm getting ready for the big fight. Oh yeah, it will probably be the last one I ever fight, but I'll make sure it's big and loud. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then they can take pride in what they accomplished. Okay, so this medication, I don't know. Ooh. Sounds like there's liquid in here. I better be careful. That's not how it works. I don't know. I don't know. I paid for this. 18 bucks. But I thought it was in a vial. It's not in a vial. I was thinking there was a vial in here. It's not. They got the liquid in this. And then they give you a little needle, I guess, to stick through this. And then they give you take off the needle after you get it to where you need to put it in the syringe, which would be 0.8. You take off the needle, which, you know, Andre would help me to do. And then you put on the syringe, and then you put it underneath in there. Of course, you call 911 the first time. They take him. You let them know what he has. Hopefully, they won't give him another drug, because if they do, you're not going to get the results as if you were to use this by itself, right? Because, you know, like I said, that one time I gave him that little pill. Ambulance came. They gave him a little pill. When he went to the hospital, they gave him a little pill, and he was knocked out cold for like 12 hours, with the doctor saying it was enough to knock out a man for hours and hours and hours and hours, like a fully grown man. And he was picking up Amari's leg and just letting it flop down onto the ground, flipping him around, and Amari was just completely out cold. I didn't like that, but what can you do? They don't always do that, but you never know, right? Anyway, as I was trying to twist it, I might have to get another one. I'm going to have to phone the pharmacy, because I thought there was a vial in here. You know, anytime you think of a needle, you always think of a little glass bottle, right? You don't think that there was a liquid in something like this, but there is. I think so. I don't know. I don't know how you poke the needle in. There is a center point on the cap. So maybe, well, there's a little indentation that the needle might be able to go through. But because I thought there was a vial in there, I was trying to take it off. And then I kind of felt something, because once you use it, it's only good for a month, and then you have to get rid of it and get a new one. So I'm going to phone up the pharmacy tomorrow, and I'm going to ask them if I compromised the lid, because I think I felt a little something as I was trying to get the lid off, thinking there was a vial in there. Now, mind you, it could be, I don't know, residue from when they filled it up. Either or, I'll deal with that. The point is, we use it the one time, we call the ambulance, they take him, they probably won't medicate him, because I'll explain to him what he's got and what the exercise is to see if he's allergic to it. And if he's not, then once he comes home, after he wakes up, because he won't be out for 12 hours, he might be just out for a couple, 2-3 hours, because when they have seizures, they get really sleepy. That's what the doctor said, right? What this does, it just doesn't knock him out for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. He comes out of it, the sleep, faster, right? So all you have to do is just watch to make sure his lips don't turn blue, which Andre can see very easily. And, you know, he's still breathing, basically. And you monitor him as if he was in the hospital. And I've been with him each and every time he's had a seizure, so I would know how to do that, right? And that's why the doctor wants us to try this. And then the next day we call the doctor's office, the neurologist, and we let him know that Amari had a seizure. So, you know, they're going on about freaking gurney this and gurney that and spinal injury and blah, blah. It's like I said, it's like a fishing expedition. They're building a case based on assumptions. They're making subliminal threats by saying you're not going to be penalized at this point as long as you do something, but we're going to come by every week and follow up to make sure you're doing something. And once you do what we want you to do, then we want to get into the bedroom, and we want, I guess, to clear out the bedroom so that I suppose Andre can have his own space, even though he's saying no, that's not what we're doing, because he's comfortable with looking after Amari and doing the shift work and yada yada yada. And at the same time, we have a plan, and he wouldn't even want to sleep in there anyway because it's too hot. And right, you know what I'm saying? And we're thinking about how we can move. You know, he wants me to bring the cats, and you know, we're figuring out what we should try and keep, and if we can keep it, and you know, will people allow us to keep it, and just whatever, right? You know, and plus we're going to be selling stuff. But I have to make it available in categories where it's easy for people to go through it, especially clothing. Right? And that takes time when you're doing the daily grind or whatever, fixing porches, rearranging the basement, pulling morning glory, you know, and you get tired and then you have to recoup because you got to get up in the morning and do 4 hours worth of dishes, and then you got to sneak in a couple of hours of freaking laundry as you hang it up, and then you got to go back and fold it up, right? You know, it's like then you got to pick up the recycle and the garbage, and then it's dishes again as you're cooking meals and just whatever. Like, you know, they're expecting too much. Like, I'm doing it, people. It's not like I'm not doing it. It's just this house has never been functional. No functioning kitchen, no functioning laundry room, no functioning porch, no inside porch, no place to put my tools, even though I had to accumulate a lot of tools. You know what I'm saying? And then just whatever's been going on downstairs. Like, that's not fair what's been going on. That created so much stress, and then the city doing what the city's been doing all these years, and then turn around and do this last little gig that they did, you know, with the blessing of my landlord jumping on that bandwagon, right, as they make me pay for it. You know, $2,150 is a lot of money just to fork over when you don't really have it, right? I could have done a lot with that money, but no, I had to go to the landlord to pay for freaking frozen wood, whether good wood, rotten wood, and weather-worn wood, which would have been good wood that I could be using now, or whether it was freaking bags full of water with the bin full of water, because when it rained, the bin itself didn't drain out. So I paid for fucking, boo-boo water. Is that why they don't give me the bill? So that I can have proof that I paid for that stupid shit? Right? As my son's running around out there like the Hulk in the middle of winter, picking up, 20-foot beams, frozen, saturated with water, but now frozen because it's in the middle of winter, so it costs more money to chuck it out when the landlord had 2 freaking years to help with me pleading with her to do it? To have her son come and help? Oh, it's a setup. This is just the second stage. That's what Marcaine said when he was out there doing what he was doing. He said, I feel, Mom, that this is a setup. They're just starting on the outside first. And he was right. He was right. He didn't get paid for none of that crap. Right? They had him working for days. Freezing cold. Christ, he was so stressed out, he was weed whacking the cement in the wintertime. Trying to make it nice for the landlord, cutting back her bushes and shit, trimming her trees. It wasn't enough. That's not what they wanted. They wanted to wipe me out, and now we've got this happening. And they think that I'm just going to sit by and let it happen quietly as they dangle Amari over my head as the penalty. Yeah, okay. And the only solution that they can provide for Amari is a metal cage, a metal, we'll call it a crib, a metal crib. Okay, it has to be a crib, okay, and with it padded, because he'll pull and then he'll fall and he'll whack his head on it, and there's your emergency. Make sure the paramedics can come get him. Yeah. How did Amari die? Well, I don't know. He tried to get out of the crib, the metal crib. He pulled off, he's a Houdini baby. He'll find a way to pull off the freaking padding when nobody's looking, because they're not going to be with him 24/7 like Andre and I are. That's where the drugs come in. Yeah, to pacify him, to make him listless and drool, and his cognitive skills are numbed, if they even will develop anymore, so that they can put their feeding tube in him and see if he will put on weight. But as soon as they miss a dose of his medication and he can start thinking again, you don't think my little Houdini baby isn't going to find a way to try and rip off that freaking padding so he can try and climb himself out, calling for his Nana? Nah, Andre. You don't think he's not going to call for Andre? Of course he is. You'd be tired thinking about that shit all day long too. Because what other penalty is there? Take Andre? Where are you going to put him? In a youth recovery house with a bunch of fucking, boo-boo addicted teenagers to methamphetamine and crack cocaine and heroin? And is that where you're going to put him and set him up with the counselors? Yeah, okay. They don't want Andre. Martine and Marina want Andre. They want to manipulate Andre. They want to set the stage so that maybe he'll meet a bad kid and the bad kid will take him down a bad path, so that they have that window of, Sierra was dead at 34 years old. That's all it took, 34 years old to take her out. And she was introduced to meth when she was 13 years old. At school. As soon as she went from the resource room to middle school. In a rich neighborhood.
From where? Okay, of course you're in the tree. Lovely. How lovely. Sir.
And when she did clean up a little bit, because I always chasing her, bring her home, right? Push away whoever was negatively influencing her. And she wanted to go back to school because her little girlfriend, whose mother was a heroin addict that I didn't know, wanted to go back to school, or was going back to school, and said, Sierra, let's go, you come with me. And Sierra bugging me. So we're thinking they're going to put her in the mainstream, right? Because she was by that time 14, because it happened right after they kicked me out of the house. Yeah. And I had to it was really wonky. And what did they do? They put her in a portable with a bunch of kids sniffing Ritalin and experimenting with crack cocaine. Yeah. Wow, what a great school setting. So, whatever little podcast mic that I bought Andre, that has a soundboard on it, where he has to go into the program itself and do a whole bunch of settings that made him read and read and read and read and read and read to the point where his head hurt, so that he could set those settings. And then he got up this morning and said, Nana, I haven't quite got them all yet. Can I, continue trying to set this program up? I said, go ahead, Andre. We're both stressed out, but I want the cord back tonight, right? So he got 2 days out of me because of this crap. But he did it, people. He did it. He did it on his own. His Uncle Marcane didn't help him. Don't ask me. I don't know what you're doing. But he did it, and now he's streaming using a mic that he just got. When did you get that mic? Yesterday?
Yeah.
Did you get all your settings done? Almost. He got all his settings almost done. He even made it where it... I'm sorry, I'm talking, Andre. I told him I wouldn't talk. But he made one of those settings where it doesn't pick up the background noise like me. I'm in the background. He put a setting in there where He did that on his own. Does that mean he's retarded because he can't write very well a sentence yet? Yet. Boys, you know, it takes them a while sometimes. Math, they're usually, you know, it depends. Depends on the individual, right? I went and I got my BCID. I handed in my driver's license because I don't see anymore, right? And they wanted me to sign my name, and I wrote my name. And the woman says, "Oh my God, you got such nice writing." Tisha tells me all the time, too, that I got nice writing. I think even the social worker said I had nice writing when I put my signature.
Oh my God.
And it's funny. I can write, but I'm going blind. Isn't that interesting? And I have nice writing, too. But that took years of practice. It's something that you want to do, right? It's not something you can force somebody to do and expect good results out of it in a short period of time. It's a progression, right? So I told Andre, once things calm down and we get, you know, on our plan, not their plan, but on our plan, then I've got books here for, you know, to learn how to write, right? A,
West,
B,
northwest.
C, D, E, F, G goes like this, right? So I told him, maybe if you start to learn how to write, you'll like that better than printing. So that's on the agenda for this year. Coming up is writing, starting with the very basics. For cursive writing, that is, right? So this video is now converted over so I can upload it, and then I'm gonna put this one on here, and I'm gonna upload that one, and I'm just gonna try and focus on what I want to do with my energy level, which isn't very much right now. It's really not. And you know, I'm going to try and get in a day or two downstairs, right? I don't know how much I'll be able to do on the porch, but honestly, I don't know. That porch, whatever's going on in that porch needs to be done ASAP. So, whether I do it this week or next week, it's going to have to be done either or. And of course, you know, it's going to interrupt their plan with those penalties looming over my head. And I don't even know what those penalties are. And I don't even know why I deserve penalties. Yeah. Which is ridiculous. That's like the city of Surrey fining me. Yeah, they fined me $250. Right? So I had to fork over $250 to Mrs. Gill right away. Right? And then she charged me $1,900 for all that crap that went out in the bin, including water, frozen or liquid, didn't matter, right? And so that was $2,150. Lost everything. I don't even have enough to do what I need to do. So I'm just going to Mickey Mouse it as I always do anyway. And now this.
Oh, what do you know? It's right there.
Now this.
Hey, bud.
Now this. And I'll be penalized probably for talking about it. And if they're not going to penalize me for talking about it because it's my life, my family's life, it is the lives of my children, well, not so much my children as it is my grandchildren who are in jeopardy, right? My children are grown now. They just get emotionally more damaged and angry. What happens there? It's like poking the bear, right? And then, probably just end up losing everything. Yeah. As everybody's screaming at me that it's my fault. This is a very good possibility. Yeah, a very good possibility. And if they're watching these videos, which they might be, because I'm talking about a lawyer, well, then they might be already conniving how to snatch Amari, like when I mentioned a lawyer when they were messing around with Sierra and Andre. They used that as the excuse to do what they did, because they didn't want me to go get a lawyer on my terms. Because they were afraid that Sierra would have signed over custody to me, because she wanted to sign over custody, at least temporary custody, to me when he was first born, and it was them who interrupted that process and said, no, we're not going to let you do that, you need to be a mom. And then they wanted to move her into a basement with an abusive man, with a newborn baby, on methadone. Okay, so I had to fight to keep her at home with the support of her family. And then, of course, we had to have Austin move in, because the social worker said that they were a family and they needed to be together. So we put up with Austin and his stupid antics, right? And then finally we got rid of Austin, right? But we had Auntie Joan down there with her mental illnesses, with her puking and her anorexia and her bulimia and her oxycontins and crawling on the floor looking for her pills and doing strange shit because she was always high on some sort of prescription drug. And I guess Sierra just needed a little extra time away from home because she basically lived downstairs. And because I was already being overworked in the yard, you know, I had a house full of 9 people trying to deal with frickin' Joan and her stupidity, right? You know what I'm saying? With Austin still trying to scratch at the window and try and worm his way back in as I'm scaring him away. And, you know, and then social workers, they came in like vultures and they took advantage of the whole situation. And then as soon as I said, yeah, I think I'm going to go talk to a lawyer about this situation, about you kicking out Sierra. Oh, next thing you know it, right? He was gone. Because I asked, what would happen if I went to go, I said, you know, I was talking to that social worker that was causing all this trouble, right? I said, what would happen if I went to go see a lawyer to discuss this situation? Because I'd never been in that situation. She gave me some honky-dory response and whatever, and then she went behind my back and she practically killed my family with her evildoer ways. Evildoer ways. And I don't think we've ever fully recovered. Not when they keep poking the bear and do this, what they've been doing since Andre's been home. I don't think we've ever recovered, right? Because then it was John, and then it was Shimei, and then it was Sierra, and now it's back to freaking, well, they're using more Amari. They can't really control Andre. They want to. They want to isolate him so they can start pulling in those deep triggers that were implanted into him when he was in foster care through that breaking of the spirit, breaking of the mind, splitting it into 2, right? Yeah. You don't think I ever stop thinking about that every now and then, just wondering, you know, because I know how it works, people. Trust me, I know. For crying out loud, I was in foster care when I was little, but I forgot, but I remember. And I put the ducks in order and I figured it out. And now I understand why I was with my grandmother. Because I came from a German family that was looking after me, that taught me how to speak German. So by the time I was 5 years old and went to my grandmother, that's all I could speak was German. Not even one word of English. So who the hell is German in my family? Nobody except for maybe a foster parent. Yeah. Plus I remember being with my Aunt Noreen and Uncle George for a while. Yeah. So that would have been considered kinship, right? You know, that kinship, foster care kind of stuff. Yeah. For how long? I don't know. I remember when I had German measles, and it was in Montreal, because I remember my mom saying we were in Montreal, and I was in this basement, and it was very white. I don't know, I don't think it was a hospital, but I had to be in the dark, because with German measles, when you get German measles, they like to keep you in the dark, right? So most of the time the lights were low, right? But I remember being on the bed, and I wasn't allowed to get up. And there were like white curtains and white floor and, you know, obviously probably white blankets on the bed and, you know, white walls and, you know, the white of that room, and it was big and open. I remember that. And I was looking at the curtain. And you know, the Muppets like Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch and, you know, those things, right? Right? Winnie the Pooh, whatever. Little puppets, right? Coming out from behind the curtain. And they were like, you know, right? Right? And I'm laying and I'm looking. And they appeared to be real to me. I remember that. That never left my mind. Never left my mind. It was probably somebody behind a curtain doing a little puppet show for me with, you know, those screechy little voices. And because I probably would have been maybe 2 or 3. I was young. I would have been very young. I remember it. But where I went after that, I guess it went to the German people. And then I came back to my family speaking nothing but German. So there's a part of my brain that's been split. Yeah. Could be why certain things have happened in my life at the direction of being manipulated to go in that direction without really realizing I was being manipulated for it based on my history with my immediate parent. Psychological warfare is real. Most definitely. And they like to catch them young while the brain is still developing. So, at any rate, we'll just have to wait and see what happens now, won't we? It's not like I got any time to be running off to a courthouse anytime soon. And you know I'd have to go by myself because Tisha wouldn't take me. She'd just scream at me the whole time I would be going. Why are you doing that? You're just gonna piss them off. Blah, 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 blah. Didn't win. You never win anything. You think you learned your lesson the last time you took the government to court. Blah, 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 blah. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to go talk to a duty counselor. And I'm probably going to put an application in for legal aid. I don't care if I get rejected. I'll put another one in and I'll ask them to forward it to the head office in Victoria, like they did when I had to do that at the request of a judge. Maybe I'll put an ex parte in where it's an emergency, where the judge can order legal aid to send it to a supervisor, like they did with Andre, because I kept being denied the first time I put an application in for legal aid when I was fighting for Andre. Yeah. Because technically there isn't a case yet, although it's being treated like there is because there's penalties looming. There's penalties. I'm not being told what they are, but they're looming. So if there's penalties looming, well, I better get some advice. And not from their counselors. In terms of, go talk about your problems. Go talk about your son mixing up your stuff. As he's accusing you of stealing Marina socks now, just to make you know what it feels like to be accused of something. doesn't stop the fact of what you've been doing all these years. So don't use socks in comparison to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff destroyed because of your antics. No counselor is going to help me with that. None. Absolutely none. What's going to help me with that is the day when my son wakes up. It will probably happen after I'm gone, and the reality of his mom is actually hit him, and he looks back at all the things that he squandered, and that's when he'll have regrets, and he will acknowledge that he was a fool. Yeah. Outside of that, he's not going to acknowledge anything. He's got too much pride. And he's trying to be a faithful husband to a woman that, I don't know. I don't want to talk about her, but, you know, lots of things I can say about her. But we'll just leave her off the table for now. It is what it is, right? And nothing I can do. You can't change other people, you can only change yourself, and that's why I'm trying desperately hard to find other people that I may be able to live with in an environment that's conducive to actually healthy living, where people are actually happy to be there. Yeah. And appreciate having a home. Not a place to live, but an actual home. And are willing to be part of the solution and be helpful versus part of the problem and be destructive. Yeah. Okay, so I'm ready now to put this onto the computer. I don't watch them. I watch them after they're uploaded. I don't even take the time. I used to watch them, and then, so I just string them together and whatever. It is what it is. Right now, YouTube's got me on some serious shadow banning, but then that's nothing new. And I'm not going to go off and change my email and change my name so I can trick the algorithm to maybe get some views on this channel so that my grandkids might have some money, you know, in terms of to help support them after I'm gone, being that I've got over 3,000 videos on this channel, to which only brings in 4 cents every 2 days. That's how much I'm being shadow banned. Yeah. As they're telling me that my channel is aging well. Congratulations, your channel is aging well. Yeah, sure, it's aging well. It's not aging. It's stagnant. It's shadow banned. It's hidden. Okay, they got me at 2,900K videos. And they just put, and they got me at, they just put another age restriction on another video 2 days ago. The one where I went off on Rhea when it really sunk home that she was, to what degree she was stealing, right? In terms of my tools and stuff like that. But it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?